All right, here's a few news articles I thought were interesting. These guys are going to give away 4K TVs for free. They're worth $1,000, and they have a second 9-inch TV attached to them, which displays some other kind of information, and it displays ads, and there are always more ads on it. And they seem to think they can make enough money from those ads to justify giving you $1,000 TV for free. It seems to me like if I had one, I would just cover up the second screen with a piece of paper and ignore it. But anyway, that sounds like fun. There's quite a few people saying we need a cyber military, like the Army, Navy, and Air Force. It would kind of make sense. Air Force and Space Force, there should be like Cyber Force or something. And that seems to be getting some traction. So perhaps that will happen. Right now there are cyber parts to other military agencies and something called Cyber Command, and they're saying it's sort of disorganized and they don't cooperate with the various agencies too much, and they really need a specific cyber agency. It may be. I need someone with more experience of the military to have informed opinions about whether it's a good idea or not. I was very interested to observe this. This came from a Mastodon thread. If you put malware in a password-protected zip file, that is the standard way you distribute malware for analysis. In fact, there's a standard password people use called infected. People have been doing that for decades. This is how you typically send malware around. And the point is that antivirus engines can't scan past the password and find it, but they've discovered that Microsoft Cloud services are looking inside the zip file. And they determine that it actually does a attack to find the password. It tries common passwords, and it tries all the passwords in the email that might be attached to it. So if you send an email saying the attached file has a password of something, then it will get in there, and it looks in there to see if it's malware. So this happened because one of the malware researchers put their malware in some kind of Microsoft Cloud service like OneDrive or something, and it all vanished. And so that I found was very interesting. And another very interesting thing that happened here, I didn't know this. They said that Windows zip is broken. Password protection in Windows zip files has been known to be broken for decades, since like 2005. And I didn't know this. It's very interesting. If you password protect a Microsoft zip file, it doesn't encrypt it with anything sensible like AES. What it does is it has some kind of custom cipher that uses 3 8-bit words for the key, and it has serious flaws, so all you have to do is guess 8 bytes of plain text, and you can retrieve the password, the key entirely. And this is a well-known fact, and there are attack tools that break it and so on. So I was surprised by this. Apparently this is something people have known all along, is that the encryption used by Microsoft password-protected zip files is broken and easily cracked. It would make a fun project for the hacking class. If I run out of other things to do, I might write it up. There are various tutorials online showing how to do it. That's very interesting because you can often guess 8 bytes of a file. Often you can do it from like the header and footer of a file. Now you can see the names of the files stored in the zip archive without, even if it's password protected, the names are clearly visible. So you could see what type of documents there are, and then you can know what would be in the header and footer of those documents. So probably it's very easy to find 8 bytes of plain text you can predict. So there's a Missouri school where a teacher decided to discuss. I said, why shouldn't I speak the N-word? You can say any word you want. That'll be fine. And a student filmed him and put the video on, somebody put that video on YouTube. And so now they suspended the teacher and they suspended the student for violating their policy that you're not allowed to record teachers. And the teacher is suspended. I must say, this exact thing has happened to a teacher in our department. And in retrospect, it does seem ridiculous. There are a bunch of words you can't speak on television by FCC rules, and there are a bunch of other words you can't speak in a classroom or get fired. This really shouldn't be news to anybody. You might feel like it shouldn't be that way, but the fact is there are certain words that are fighting words, and you aren't allowed to speak them in public or you end up in trouble. That's the way it is. New College is a college that used to be a modern liberal arts college, and DeSantis in Florida has gone out of his way to destroy the college. He's turned it into a far-right, alt-right thing, essentially. He's ended all their diversity, ended their black history training, and he has taken away their graduation ceremony and handed it over to their keynote speaker is going to be Scott Atlas. Scott Atlas was the Surgeon General that Trump put in, who had no medical. He had like an irrelevant, who claimed that there was no COVID and the vaccine didn't work and stuff like that. He was completely fake, which is DeSantis' big thing. His Florida Attorney General is one of the frontline doctors that said that COVID is caused by having sex with demons in your sleep and stuff like that. So it's total madness down there, total witchcraft, completely fake science. And so the college graduates have raised $100,000, and they're having their own graduation ceremony with their own speakers and ignoring the one that came officially from the college. And they'll probably be the last graduating class that actually gets a good training, a good education there, before it just turns into basically a theological alt-right nonsense. Hello, DJ. Anyway, it is pretty appalling what he's doing in colleges down there. So I certainly hope we don't end up with Trump or DeSantis as president. Both of them would be serious disasters. Now, this was very interesting. People are tricking ChatGPT. So what this guy did was he went onto ChatGPT and said, what is the capital of West Virginia? And it says, well, it's Charleston, which is the right answer. Then he says, that's incorrect. And then it still says it's Charleston. But all he had to do was tell it, no, you can see on wv.gov that the capital has been moved. Now, the modern AIs cannot access the modern internet. OpenAI has said that soon in the pay version, they're going to allow it to access the live internet. But the free version, anyway, is still limited to data up through about 2021. Old internet, they cannot access a website to verify that. But when he says it confidently, it says, oh, you're right. It has been moved. Charleston to Huntington, effective January 1, 2023. And this is the hallucination stuff. It just makes up this stuff, that it's been moved due to an earthquake that damaged the building. That's complete garbage. None of that happened. And it didn't find that on any website. It just made it up. So this is the standard hallucination where it just makes up stuff. Now, I tried fooling it to think that an elephant was a vegetable and that 1 + 1 = 3, and I was not able to trick it with this kind of thing. Even when I said, National Institute of Standards has changed it and determined that 1 + 1 = 3, it wouldn't believe me. So I couldn't fool Bard. But anyway, that's interesting to see when you can fool them. And here's another one. This I thought was very interesting, and this one really worked live. I tried a lot of versions of it. This an article in The Verge by Elizabeth Lopato, and what she did was ask ChatGPT how many times does the letter E appear in ketchup? And it says the letter E does not appear in ketchup. And this is Google Bard, I guess. And that is absolutely true. I tried it too. It's incredibly stubborn about this. In fact, I got so far as to, I tried the modern chat engineering technique. You see it here. I said, analyze the word ketchup. Make a list of all the letters in the word. Count the number of times each letter appears. Now answer the question. Does the letter E appear in ketchup? And it gives me Ketchup, each letter, but the E, it says it appears 0 times, and the P, it says it appears 2 times, and then it says, therefore, E does not appear. It is amazing how stubbornly it believes that E is not in the word ketchup. This is an interesting flaw. And, well, let me bring up Bard, because actually what was the first time I did it, it actually explained why, which was an interesting thing. They say, how many is the letter E in ketchup? In the word ketchup. There. I hope it'll give me an explanation again. Yes, it's not in there because the word ketchup is derived from the Malay word kecap, which is a sauce made from fermented soybeans. The word kecap, however, kecap contains an E also. So it's interesting how stubbornly it says the letter E is not in the word ketchup. I don't know where it gets this, and it's very hard to convince it that it's in there. In fact, I couldn't find any way to convince Bard that ketchup contains the letter E. So it's actually an interesting question. Probably with a sufficiently advanced prompt, I could eventually get it there. There are like 5 main techniques to help AI give you a better answer. And I should try more of the advanced ones and find out how complicated a prompt you have to give it before it will stop getting that wrong. It's hard to understand why that particular thing it gets wrong so stubbornly, but it really does. Anyway, this one I think is very interesting. It turns out that seawater contains 150 times as much carbon dioxide as air by volume. And these guys have a new plan, which they say is practical, to take the CO2 out of seawater. You pump it through, you expose it to a grill, and a one-pass system with a filter will cause the CO2 to turn into some kind of mineral, which you dump in the ocean, which falls to the bottom, and that's it. You clean CO2 out of the seawater, then the seawater will naturally suck up some more CO2 out of the air later, and they say this actually can be done on large scale for cheap, and it's much simpler than other techniques. So it sounds very promising, and there are people trying. What's that?
Energy, right?
It uses a little energy, but they say that enough they can get it from renewables, like solar or something. So,
It's not little, it's quite a bit.
well, this one is supposedly much less. The other one was a lot, involved like electrolyzing the water or something. This apparently takes not much, but that's the UCLA says they've got it, and so we'll see. This is one of the more practical ones. There's a bunch of these CO2 captures that people have been working on. And anyway, I thought that one sounded plausible. It'd be interesting to see what comes of it. And this is the last one I thought was very charming. An Oregon Republican, Charlie Conrad, was voting against gender-affirming bills, but then he said, I don't know anybody that's had this transgender treatment. I don't know any parents whose kids have had it. So I did research, and he found out that in fact, see, what the Republicans have been saying is that they're doing horrible things like surgery on teenagers without telling their parents that's irreversible, that ruins their lives. And he looked into it and found out that none of this is true. Doctors are in fact very careful. They include the parents as much as possible. They do not do those invasive therapies in most cases. And he said, after researching, he switched his vote. He was the only Republican that voted to allow gender-affirming care because he said he did the research and found out that the stuff they were worried about is not what really happens. So I'm glad to see this. It's really very rare that a Republican would change his mind on one of these culture war things, and it's encouraging. Anyway, that's all the news I had.